Guys, welcome into the Gashouse Gang. You got Bernie Miklasz, Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler with you here. The Gashouse Gang, of course, sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling and Game Day Men's Health. You can find them at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Guys, this is the last show under this particular format. It's not ending. This thing's just going on air, which is kind of what we were all hoping for, right? I mean, there's been a great audience. People have been buzzing about it. So we're taking this to the air starting on Monday. And all of this exists still, too. So you're still going to be able to watch us on YouTube. And I say us, I mean, there's a lot of us. Now, typically on these days, Matt and I will not be on the Gashouse Gang because we're going to be doing 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, a Cardinals program called Redbird Rush Hour, leading into pregame, leading into Sports Open Line. So we've got a little bit more sports content on the air, and that's in part because we're going to 104.1 FM as of 12:01 a.m. Monday morning. So Monday, we're going to be full on simulcast FM and AM. So if you're on 1120, that's not changing. But now you can get 104.1 FM everywhere for KMOX. So we've got all of this going on. But otherwise, as we pointed out yesterday, if you watch us in the form that you do now on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, that's not going away. That's staying. It's just also going to be on the air. And you'll notice probably two things, and I'll stop about it on this, guys, but I want people to be prepared for Monday. You'll notice two things that are slightly different. One, there will be commercial breaks, because it's a live radio show, so there will be commercial breaks. And then also probably a few more guests here and there. It won't be all the time. It's not going to be nonstop. But Chris Ranji is going to be driving the show every day. Tom Ackerman's going to be there several days a week. Bernie, you're going to be popping in a couple of days a week. Matt and I will kind of do it as needed and as it makes sense based on scheduling and Cardinals and all of that. And then you and I will take care of the 5 o'clock hour, which will also be joined by Bernie a couple times a week too. Bernie, you're going to be busy, man.
My wife said something to me this morning, and she said, like, you look like you're worried about something. And I'm like, well, I got some new stuff starting next week, and also the expanded Gashouse Gang, and I'm like, I know I'll get all this stuff done, and I love to work. It's actually keeping me from rotting, but and I'm grateful that people still want me, right?
Yeah, we do.
But yeah, I'm like, I said, no, this is just the kind of pre-transition anxiety. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. So I hope I can keep all my assignments in line. I'm going to make Steve Moore text me every day to remind me.
Here's what you got today. Yeah, by the way, we'll talk to you later on today on DGS also, so you can double duty today too. All that stuff is great. We're very happy about it. And again, this show still is going to exist in its current forms, as far as the platforms are concerned, and it'll change a little bit after that. So we're going to do a lot more non-baseball today than usual because there's just big stuff going on. We're going to talk about Mizzou's loss. We're going to talk about the Blues win. What a big win that was. So we'll start with baseball, but we're obviously going to leave a lot of time for the NCAA tournament, Mizzou, and for the Blues too, because that was like a playoff game last night. That was a lot of fun. So let's start with what we keep on waiting to hear about, right? We were texting with Tom Ackerman earlier today. Sounds like the Cardinals are not settled yet on what they want to do in center field, that it's going to be figured out this weekend. Of course, you only have this weekend to figure it out. But you made a really good point in the text, Bernie. We'll start with this because I think it's just important to understand context and things change and what things matter. But you made a really good point about people comparing Victor Scott a year ago to Victor Scott now.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, let me just say this. I understand why people would do that. I do. I understand it. But I also think they're missing a lot. And there's some people that I have immense respect for who have kind of repeated that, where they say, well, Victor Scott had good numbers last spring, and hey, it didn't matter. He wasn't ready. So I'm not so sure about this. What's different? What's different this spring compared to last spring? We saw this a year ago. No, you didn't.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, I mean, I made some notes so I can go through this quickly rather than rambling too much. The dude he's going into the weekend. He's hitting 359. He's got a 457 on base percentage. He's slugging 692. He's got two doubles, a triple, 3 home runs. 6 of his 14 hits have been extra bases, and he's walking a lot. He's got about as many walks as strikeouts. Last spring, Victor Scott hit for average 317, but it was a lot of soft contact or softer contact. He wasn't hitting the ball real hard. And I'm not going to bore people with numbers, but I looked it all up. You'll have to trust me. But he had only one extra base hit last spring in 41 at bats. Okay. His slugging percentage last spring was a mediocre 3.66. He didn't walk as much as he is this spring. But more than that, not to get too geeky, but he has changed his style of hitting. So he's not the same guy in the batter's box even. And, let me read from my notes if you don't. And by the way, I give Dane Perry credit for this, our friend, for pointing this out. He said he said he's hitting the ball much harder. All the StatCast stuff show it.
Yep.
He's lifting and striding his front foot. He has a better angle with where he's got the knob as he's, as he's making impact with a pitch at the point of contact. Like everything is aligned. All his power is going forward. His hand placement is really, really good. And if you went by the expected stats based on quality of contact, Victor Scott, his numbers this spring off the charts compared to last spring.
Yeah.
But with all due respect, I understand that people would mention this. I get it. I'm telling you, it's just not even close to being correct. He is a different hitter this spring. And if you're going to have a competition, then spring training stats matter, but it isn't even just the stats. All you got to do is look at him and look at the confidence in him and the authority that he has in his persona as he steps into the batter's box. He's not a nervous kid. He's like, okay, I know what I have to do here. Let's go. Boom.
Yeah.
So people need to get off that crap because it's just not accurate.
And if I can add, because those stats were basically what I was going to give. You compare OPS to last year to OPS to this year, and it's a completely different world. But how about the fact of, as the pitching has gotten better, as we've gone deeper into spring training, his numbers have gone up. He was hitting 318 on March 10th. He, in the 5 games since then, he has a hit in every single one of those games. And I'm sorry to use batting average, Kevin, but I'm just trying to make a
Damn
point
it, Matt.
in terms of the trend.
We just talked about this.
He's done, I mean, if you want to use OPS, we can do that as well. He's gone from, basically 1,000 to 1,150. So it does, the reason I use batting average is just show the trend. The opponent pitching has gotten better because guys are pitching deeper into games and guys are competing for bullpen spots. And Victor Scott II's numbers have gone up at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, this is kind of when you weren't in yesterday, Bernie, I went on a rant about stop using batting average as a main argument. I mean, of course it matters because it's a part of on base. It's a part of your slug. Like it goes into the equation. It's just, you just need some more ingredients. But the things you guys hit on that matter the most to go along with the numbers is that you're seeing legitimately measurable improvements on quality of contact, on swing decisions, right? I mean, when you're swinging at something you can't do anything with, and I know I repeat this all the time, but there's a reason. Ted Williams always said the number one rule of hitting is get a good pitch to hit. Number one rule, more important than everything else. So when you're doing the things that Gorman did when he was struggling last year, or that Walker's done as a big leaguer, or that even Mason Wynn does, Wynn doesn't swing and miss, but he does swing too much at pitches he can't do anything with. If you're not doing that, and Scott wasn't last year, he was blind last year in regular season, but even in spring. But in spring, you're taking advantage of lesser pitchers. His speed would allow him to leg out a single here or there. It was a different thing. But when you're seeing an extra 3-4 miles an hour on the exit velo, when you're seeing less chase and more swinging at stuff you can do something with, and these are the things that are measurable that tie into it. So you don't want one or the other, because batted ball stuff matters, but it's not by itself a thing, right? You still have to have production at some point. But it's fascinating to look at the change that a guy can make by doing a couple of simple things, couple of mechanical adjustments, and then mostly just really being disciplined about what you're going to swing at. I mean,
what do you guys think? And, Matt, I want your opinion, because you were down there a lot before coming back. And I know Tom Ackerman, thank him, is down there now. But What's your sense of what they're going to do? And by the way, I don't think any predictions we make here should be held against us.
No.
Because the Cardinals don't even know what they're going to do yet. They're leaving it open. Matt Pauley, how do you anticipate this decision going? Is it going to be Scott Ciani or is Nootbaar going to be in center field?
The only thing I know for sure is that if Victor Scott's on the roster, he's got to be playing a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I don't think they're going to make Michael Ciani the everyday center field. I think we've crossed a line now where the only legitimate options are Nootbaar in center or Scott in center. So I'd be lying to you if I told you, I was knocked off my rocker a little bit when the report came out a few days ago that it was going to be Ciani and that Scott was going to end up in the minors to start the year. Like, for that to be reported that basically that decision was made, that surprised me because I felt like Scott had done enough to maybe already have earned the job, and if nothing else, for it still to be a competition. Now, based off what we heard today from Tom, it is still very much a competition. You just can't ignore everything that Scott's doing.
Yeah.
So even if they made a decision 3 days ago, if Scott does what he's done recently, and you can't ignore it. So I have a real hard time grasping this one. I'd be lying to you guys if I told you that I had a real good understanding of what's going on.
Yeah. I think we mentioned this before. I mean, I understand they don't want to take at bats away from Gorman and Burleson, which will happen if Scott's there because one of them is going to be out of the lineup every day. I mean, just that's the way that's how it plays. But I'm still of the opinion that I want Scott in center field, and that if Burleson is your 10th guy, there's tons of at bats to go around. Because you know what? Nolan Arenado needs more days off. He shouldn't play 155 games unless he's hitting. If he's not hitting, he should get more days off. And everybody needs days off. Nootbaar needs days off so he doesn't get hurt, right? Victor Scott's going to need some days off. There are 500 at-bats for Alec Burleson as the 10th guy. If you want to play it that way.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I agree with the principle that my friend and colleague Matt Pauley just espoused. So, like, if he's got to play every day, well, I totally agree with that as a concept. But I mean, could he be a kind of in that little bit of a gray area between a starting center fielder and a fourth outfielder? I mean,
if he plays 5 games a week, that's fine.
Yeah, he's going to play a lot. One way or the other. And I would maintain that if he's playing a lot, even though he's not the quote declared full-time starter in center field, I think he'll still benefit by going up against major league pitching. That's all.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the, last night this was clanking around in my head, and I went a little crazy with like looking at how you could do all this, but we don't need to get into it, but there are a lot of ways to divide at bats. Rest, again, not committing to Arenado getting to play every single damn day. He gets to play every day if he's producing. But if he's not producing, then he maybe gets an extra couple of days off a month that he wasn't getting before. Those go to other people. There are plenty of ways to do it. You can say, hey, this guy hits fastballs. We got a fastball pitcher on the mound. He's playing today. This guy we got a breaking ball pitcher on the mound. This guy here, he hits breaking balls. He's going to play today. There are plenty of ways to spread that out and still have Scott be the guy that plays 4 or 5 times a week in center field, which is going to get you 500 at bats. And by the way, if he's on the team, he should be batting leadoff.
That's what I think. We just had a good note there. It was, scrolling across the screen there.
There we go. We'll leave it up, Jake.
Scott would make a great double leadoff in the 9-hole. And all due respect, Jake, I understand what you're saying. Actually, that would make sense, but it doesn't change the fact that means the leadoff hitter would be a guy that had a 290 on base percentage as the number one hitter. And which was a 276 on base percentage against right-handed pitchers. And, that's just incomprehensible to me that they would do that again. It defeats the whole purpose of having a leadoff man, which is to get on base. That's the top objective.
The way that Jake puts it in the last part, he would have Wynn in the 8-hole and then Scott and then maybe Donovan or Nootbaar or somebody that would make some sense too. It's fine. But I mean, I would just love to see that game-changing speed at the top of the order.
No, I'm with you, and I apologize to Jake because I didn't finish what he said, and I apologize to him. That was wrong. No, I mean, Nootbaar gives you a tremendous walk rate and a really good on-base percentage as a leadoff hitter.
Yeah,
he also runs well. I think, for sure. I think Lars Nootbaar. I think Brendan Donovan is always a fallback position for the leadoff spot.
Yeah,
he hasn't walked as much like last year, and I think he was trying to sacrifice some of that for, power. But Lars, you can count on both Nootbaar or Donovan to get you a high on base percentage in the leadoff hole.
I have a hard time.
You're going to face a lot of right-handed pitchers too. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, you were going to say something, Kevin.
I was going to say no. We're gonna take a break.
Okay.
We'll pick
Matt,
it up.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. We're going to pick it right up. So it's the Gashouse Gang on KMOX and all the KMOX social media channels. Bernie Miklasz, Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler here. And before we get back to finishing that point, Bernie, tell us about Saliga.
Saliga Heating and Cooling's been taking care of the Miklas's for 16 seasons, and we've been very fortunate because you never want to have an emergency with your heating and cooling. You never want to have strange noises. What does that mean? Something breaking? You never want to have signs of like, something's not right. And so it's inevitable from time to time those things will happen. I tell you what, peace of mind knowing that all we got to do is call 314-481-7333, Saliga Heating and Cooling, and help is on the way, and it's expert help. It's incredibly knowledgeable and professional and honest. And the anxiety over a potential problem with your heating and cooling, with us, it's been basically eliminated. We don't worry about it because we know Saliga Heating and Cooling will take great care of us the way they've been taking care of St. Louis family since 1927. Dan Saliga is the fourth owner operator of the family business. They have the Priority Club maintenance program, which is really beneficial to you in a lot of ways, and I want you to take a look at that. This proud independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer, you can find out all you want about that Priority Club and all their services by going to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. Thank you.
All right, so picking up on that last point, Matt, it's a fascinating thing. We were talking about before the break, top of the order, and where Victor Scott fits if he plays, and how you want to structure the top. You can finish up that thought on. We were talking about Newton, Donovan, and all that.
Yeah, it's I'm torn because I love the elite on base potential of Brendan Donovan, and you want guys on at the top of the order. But to your point, Kevin, I love the idea of Victor Scott II getting on base in the first inning and things just starting to happen. Him stealing bases, him going first to third on a hit, him getting into the head of a pitcher, the things he does resulting in a pitcher getting a little bit frazzled and maybe that pitch count going up. You can dictate so many things for the final 8 innings by doing some things in the first inning. And I do think Scott on the bases has the potential to impact all 9 innings of the game.
I'm with you two guys. That's all I'll say. Yep. I'm absolutely on board with that.
All right. So last thing on the baseball side, and then we'll start diving into the Blues and a little bit on Mizzou's season coming to a close yesterday. Is there a thing in all of this that because we've been talking about this stuff all spring and all off season, and we've kind of come up with, I think, angles on just about everything you can. So are there things that once the season starts, you can pick 1, 2, whatever you want, that you're just really most interested in tracking what happens? Because we've talked about all these. Like for me, I'll just lead off to give you guys the example. I think it's how they handle Nolan Arenado. That's one of the most interesting things to me. Does he still get to be the guy that's always playing no matter what? When he wants to play, he gets to play? Or do you say, you know what, maybe you're better off at 34 because he's turning 34 in a month. Maybe you're better off with more rest. Maybe you'll recover better. Maybe you'll hit better. And if you're not hitting at the level that you're needed to, are you going to move down the order? They did some of that last year, but how long did it take? How long did it take for Goldschmidt and Arenado to slide down the order? So I'm really interested in how that's going to play out. Are there things like that for you guys?
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, 2 things. First off, just how they hand out playing time behind the plate. It really feels like Ivan Herrera has taken the inside track, which I think is the right decision because of his bat. But if weird, funky things start happening from a pitching standpoint, do they go back to Pedro Paz more behind the plate, and what does that look like? And then I'm also really curious to see, we'll see that with the addition of Phil Maton, what it looks like, but there's going to be some high leverage innings that are out there. I'd like the team to take the foot off the pedal a little bit with Jojo Romero compared to how they used him last year.
Yeah.
We know that Ryan Fernandez is ready to step forward, but I think there's going to be some high leverage innings that are going to be up for grabs. And I'm very curious to see how that internal battle goes in the bullpen on which guy, who we're not talking about a lot right now for 7th, 8th, 9th inning roles, which one of those guys kind of puts himself in that position.
Yeah, I think you guys have nailed it. I totally agree with Wheeler, and Wheeler, you're like to use a pet phrase that Tom Ackerman and I use with each other, you're going bananas. You're going bananas on this Arenado stuff. I like it, but I mean, you ain't going to let that go. Nobody's going to pull.
It's the story of the year.
Nobody's going to pull that leftover chuck roast out of your mouth on this, man.
I'm going to beat that horse till it doesn't move.
Yeah, this dog is not going to let go, man. No, I like it. I'm having fun teasing.
Totally.
No, because I agree with that. And I was trying to look for some numbers real quick, and I'll find them. I can't do it right now, but I wonder what the record shows about him getting how he does after he has a day off or has a couple of days off.
Rest, yeah.
I think they really need to be smart about this. And see, that's one of the things. Maybe I'm being unfair. At least I acknowledge that in the beginning. And I'm not. I don't think I'm being unfair. Other people might think it's unfair. That's fine. I tip my cap. That's one of the questions about Ollie that I still have as a manager, of all the things I like that he does and all the things he does that he doesn't get credit for, and he should. There's a pattern that I've seen with every manager that followed Tony La Russa, where they really defer to veterans. It's almost like they're like, well, this is one of our guys. This is one of our veterans. This is one of our guys that's like, it's had a great career. He would go be a Hall of Famer, and I got to treat him with great respect and all this stuff. You got to do what's best for the team. And I'm not saying you humiliate a Nolan Arenado or
no.
But there's a point in time when you got to recognize that a guy's in decline. He's not getting any younger. And you're not obligated to play him every day. And if he glares at you, so what? I mean, he wanted to stay here. He could have gone to Houston, but he wanted to stay here. But, with Ollie, I worry about that because, we've seen him do that with pitchers. And we've seen, the way they threw Contreras under the bus in May of 2023. The pitchers were whining, and then instead of handling it like I think a really, mature way, Ollie panicked and capitulated to the pitchers. That stuff bothers me. And to your point, keeping Goldie in the 2-hole for as long as he did last year, it's like, come on, can we just do what's best for the team and quit worrying whether a veteran player will like you or not?
Yeah, and I want to be clear. I don't think that treatment has to start in April. Right. I mean, at the beginning, he's Nolan Arenado. He can play if he's going well. Yeah, play every day. I mean, that's not the question. The question is, and I've asked this, and it's exactly what you're talking about, Bern. It's the willingness and ability to adapt on the fly to the circumstances, no matter what the situation is. So if you need more offense, play for offense. If you need better defense and you're pitching really well, or you're hitting really well, all right, well then make a choice about defense. But we need to be a little bit sharper on the adaptations and say, all right, yeah, we need, last year, a lot of time. How many times did we have that conversation about the catcher position when Wilson Contreras was hurt? You're struggling for offense, but you're not playing Herrera. He's your better hitter, right? It's just adaptability is a big thing in baseball, maybe bigger than any time since the 80s. Because in the 80s, you had guys like Earl Weaver and Whitey Herzog and Sparky Anderson and Billy Martin, and they were always doing things and adapting and trying different things. And Earl was the king of the platoon in the outfield spots, and a couple other spots too. But that adaptability is critical now. You look at the Dodgers. The Dodgers do it.
Yeah, they do.
Yes, and they're the highest payroll in the sport.
They do. There's no doubt about it. And I know, Kevin, you're interested in this stuff. Matt is too. When you talk about, well, what do you put? Do you rather than the left-handed hitters versus right-handed hitters thing? Is that a baseball Bible type thing? Right-handed hitters versus lefties. Is that a baseball Bible thing? Is that an Old Testament thing? You must do it or whatever. Well, you mentioned Earl Weaver. See, you should never give me a chance to talk about him.
Yeah. When you talk about him.
When Earl Weaver was the manager of the Orioles, I'll never forget. Every time they faced Nolan Ryan, and we noticed that Mark Belanger not only started but hit leadoff against Nolan Ryan, and we're like, what? I said to my dad, what? Belanger's he's a terrible hitter. He's just terrible. What is Earl doing? I mean, and my father's like, I don't know, kind of interesting. And the thing of it is, for whatever reason, Belanger had great numbers against Nolan Ryan. So he put him at the top of the lineup against Nolan Ryan. And Belanger, it was like a very enlightened choice that on the surface is kind of like, what? But, see, that's the kind of stuff I think we're looking for, right? And the thing of it is, but the other thing managers do, Ollie does it, but he's not the only one. But they put too much faith in really small samples. And like if you're looking like how a hitter does against a particular pitcher, and you'll hear Ollie or Matheny or even Schultz say like, well, he's 5 for 9 against this guy. But the thing of it is, all of that happened like say 3 years ago, just about. So it has no relevance, right? So that's the thing too. They can't chase small samples to justify decisions. Earl Weaver went with Mark Belanger against Nolan Ryan after he had enough evidence to realize it made sense.
Matt, final baseball thought?
I can't add much to it. By the way, interesting thing real quick, just a sidebar. Kyle Sixstar, sports producer, sent this to me. Aaron Boone said today that they're going to probably hit Goldschmidt leadoff against left-handed lefties.
There you go.
Look out. Well, against
Smart.
lefties. That's really, good.
Yeah. He has a huge on-base percentage against lefties.
There you go. It's a good start. Good start to the batting order. All right, it is the Gashouse Gang with Bernie Miklasz, Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler with you here, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling and Game Day Men's Health, and you can find them at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. If you're not feeling great, go check it out. Let's talk Blues, man. Playoff atmosphere last night. Big win. You don't love giving up the point, but you'll still take the 2 points, and the Blues are now in the 8th spot.
Yeah, it was, man, that was a fun game to watch. I was so locked in. That's of all the Blues games I've watched this year, that was the one where it was like I was so engaged with everything that was going on. Give credit to Vancouver. The Blues defensively were not great in the final 6 seconds, and then that leads to them getting the equalizer and stealing the point, and you just pray that point doesn't come back to bite the Blues at the end of the season. But for them to pull themselves off the mat and just be buzzing during the overtime period and eventually get the game winner and get the 2 points. That could have, they were 6 seconds away from, having 2 points.
Perfect outcome,
having none. And then all of a sudden they were at any moment a second away from giving up 2 points to Vancouver. So for it to, it wasn't the best possible finish, but it was a pretty good one. And that was, it said a lot about the Blues. The other day, Jim Montgomery said after a game how, when they had the plane issues getting out of Minnesota. And he said, when that happened, I knew we were going to win the next night, because right now this team wants to find any sort of adversity and they want to bust through it. And I think there's a lot of truth to it. That's a paraphrase, not an exact quote, but you get the idea.
There's a couple things here. First of all, again, once again, salutations to Jim Montgomery, since the Blues were a horrendous 5-on-5 team at the time of the coaching change. They, in their competitions, they were scoring just under 42% of the goals 5-on-5. With Monty as the coach, even during the ruts, they were still a strong 5-on-5 team, where they've scored like 56% of the goals of 5-on-5. That's a lot more than 41%, 42%. And that trend has continued. The Blues since February the 8th are 11-2-2. They have the most points in the league. They have an 800 points percentage. It's the most in the league. They've scored 61% of the 5-on-5 goals. Also, one thing Montgomery did, he put that line together, which is really one of the best lines in the league right now. We're talking about Kyrou, Shen, Holloway, however you want to lay it out there. So during this stretch where the 15 games where they're 11-2-2, when that line has been on the ice, all situations, they've outscored opponents 18-8. In other words, their goal shares, that line's the Blues have a 69% goal share when that line is on the ice. Those guys click beautifully. And I mean, Kyrou and Holloway and their speed in particular.
Yeah.
Like we saw it last night. I mean, those are two burners, man. And that gives the Blues that line gives the Blues a dimension where you have the tough, gritty, smart center.
Yep.
Who knows
the
where
responsible
the
guy.
Going,
yep.
Right. And then these two guys just fly. And they know how to make plays with each other. I mean, So they got that going. And I just the goal prevention has been so great. The shot prevention has been great. And, and I hate to say this because I'm not being negative. As you can tell, I'm being very, very positive about the Blues. But like even last night, the only thing I would say about during this hot streak is that from a foundational standpoint, the Blues have been outstanding. Their goaltending could be better.
Yeah.
Their
goaltending
been
a couple times, yeah.
Their goaltending has kind of been middle of the pack, even during this hot streak. And I really didn't think Binnington had a good game last night. I think, that last shot was one, I think maybe 9 times out of 10 he would stop, but it was just one of those things. I love Binnington. Don't get me wrong, but I'm saying the scary thing is the Blues are capable of even doing better because Hofer's gotten really hot. Binnington's been up and down. But we know those guys are capable of playing better. And so think about it that way. The Blues, by the way, according to Money Puck, 43% chance to make the playoffs. Vancouver, 30.4%. Calgary, 24%. Utah, 10%. So everyone talks about, well, the Blues have games at hand. I know this is all factored in there. So it seems like their trends will take them to the playoffs, but they got to take care of business with 12 games left. And they have some easy games, but they've got some tough opponents remaining on the slate too.
Yeah, they would have been above 50%. At least the numbers that ESPN used on their broadcast last night, because they ran through the playoff probabilities based off the results. And had the Blues won in regulation, their playoff probability would have gone above 50%. That's a big point they gave up.
Yeah,
like I'm not trying to dismiss the win, but gosh, that's a big point. Especially if the game enhances. It goes from them controlling their destiny to them not controlling their destiny
in that way, right? Barring their own compilation of points that puts that out of the conversation. Right. And by the way, last thing I have on the Blues is I've been really impressed by how they lost. They've responded since losing Parayko. I thought that was really going to be a problem because he's been really good. And they've picked it up. I mean, that's you're losing your best defenseman, and I know it's only been 5-6 games since you lost him. But in those 5 or 6, you're winning and you're gaining ground, and that's hard to do with your best defenseman not there and a guy that logs a ton of minutes. So I've been impressed. I think overall this turn since the coaching change could not really have gone better.
Fowler and I think Matt. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead, man. Finish.
I was just saying, I've been impressed with both Fowler and Suter. I feel like from a defensive standpoint, those are the two guys that have really emerged.
Yeah, Fowler's been great, and Suter's been better than I thought. You talk about a steady defenseman. What great! Listen, Doug Armstrong's made mistakes. We've all talked about all the money invested in defensemen that aren't all that hot. Listen, no one's going to sit here and say, "Oh man, everything he touches turns to gold." No, he's made some bonehead moves, and I think he'd be the first to tell you that. But in terms of what his moves, this season have meant to this team. To get Broberg and Holloway on an offer sheet, kind of just basically go against the whole league norms. You're not supposed to do that. Right. He stole 2 guys from Edmonton who are 23 years old. The Sutter signing has turned out great. The Cam Fowler trade was genius. They've also bringing Montgomery in was the obvious move, but still he had to make it. Yep. And look at how much the young Blues players are thriving under Jim Montgomery. It's like night and day. So Doug Armstrong has really done a hell of a job this season. And he had to sort of work around some of the problems that were his own creation. But his specific moves in terms of new Blues this year, outstanding.
It is the Gashouse gang, Bernie Miklasz, Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler with you here. We're going to get to Mizzou here in a second, but first, Bernie, tell us again about your friends at Saliga.
Just real quick, Saliga Heating and Cooling has been doing this since 1927, and they're an American standard heating and air conditioning dealer. I mentioned the Priority Club. In short, here's what it is, and we've been a member of the Priority Club for years, and it really pays off for us. They come out twice a year to check all your equipment, and these are regularly scheduled things. And they come out, they're not in your home very long at all. They just want to make sure everything's working the way it should. They adjust things, tweak things, those kind of things. And if there's a little small problem, they'll fix it. And it costs virtually nothing. And that kind of maintenance prevents a big problem from happening. So you'll get extended life with your equipment, and also just that peace of mind and knowing that everything's safe and working well. So it's worth every penny. So check out the Priority Club and check out everything at Saliga by going to Saliga heatingandcooling.com. Thank you.
All right, so for our last 4 or 5 minutes here, let's get into Mizzou. I think we could all agree, big picture, this is a heck of a season, man. I mean, if you give it a grade, you can give it whatever you want. I would say it's at least a B plus on the season for the turnaround from last year to this year. They were competitive. They were awesome at times and then faded a little bit as we got near the end of the year. And then they went out yesterday to Drake. And I know, Bernie, you saw it coming, man. I watched the video yesterday, and Drake was a threat. The point spread said Mizzou was favored, but when you're looking at the seeds, anytime it's 6-11, 5-12, 7, 7 and 10 and 8, 9, those are not really upsets. Those teams are all very similar.
I got to be honest with you. I've been really surprised that so many Mizzou fans, and I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying I'm surprised that they were really like stunned by Mizzou losing to Drake. And I think maybe because we're in St. Louis, home of the Missouri Valley Conference, their tournaments here every year. Drake's an outstanding basketball team. This was no Little Sisters of the Poor thing. I mean, I saw had Mizzou fans, clapping back at me for suggesting that Drake was very dangerous in this game, and it was going to be a really tight one. I thought Mizzou would win, but I thought Drake would cover. So the cover part worked. But Ben McCollum, that coach, the guy is just phenomenal. And you know what he did last night? He beat Mizzou at their own game. Mm-hmm. Like Mizzou has been, Drake this year has been not good at all in terms of like inside the zone, inside the 3-point line, I should say, and in the paint. They've been very vulnerable. Last night, I mean, they outscored Mizzou in like 2-point shots by a ton of points, and they outscored them 18-10 in the paint. And they were the ones driving the ball and exploiting the defense and playing physical. Now, Mizzou did get to the free throw line a lot, but Mizzou's defense has been terrible since February the 19th. It was terrible again last night. You're not going to win when you allow them to shoot 556 from 2 and 50% from 3, and you shoot 33% overall. I mean, the better team won last night. Drake, just people need to understand Drake is really, really good. And oh, by the way, since 2011, and I also warned everyone about this, since 2011 in the NCAA tournament, from all the seeds 10 through 16, the first round games that have had the most upsets, 11 beating 6. After last night, it's now 29 times the 11 has beat the 6. In the last 14 tournaments. I wasn't surprised. I really wasn't surprised at all.
Yeah. It's this shouldn't be a really interesting thing that you just said, Bernie, but it is that the better team won, because I guess it goes into how do we define better team? Because I would contend, I bet you guys would agree with me, if Missouri puts out their 100% best effort and Drake puts out their 100% best effort, I think Missouri's winning that game. But in terms of consistency, in terms of having red flags and actually addressing those. Like there were things that we learned about Missouri in the final month of the season before they had their pickup right before the regular season ended. All those things played out last night. And at times Missouri offensively, oh my goodness, do they just
they're rushing everything.
Yeah, it was bad.
A lot of one-on-one play. Like the assist turnover ratio between these two teams, huge advantage to Drake. They were really smart running their own offense. Mizzou was not.
I was very disappointed with what Mizzou looked like defensively. I mean, that's a really disappointing day. So that's the thing. When Mizzou's best is better than the opponent's best, but Bernie can sit here and say, and he's probably right, that the better team won. I think that's worth like digging into and trying to figure out what leads to that.
Well, I mean, there could be a team that has a higher ceiling but a lower floor. I think that's Mizzou.
Yeah. Mizzou ran out of gas. I mean, they end the season losing 6 out of 7 and 7 out of 8 or 7 out of 9. Listen, real quick. I know I'm obnoxious with the stats. Since February 19th, and this covers 8 games, right? Their last 8 games. There's 364 Division I teams, right? Mizzou was ranked 359th in stopping 2-point shots. Like
holy crap!
You could just go in the lane and do whatever the hell you wanted, and that's what's happened. They also, the effective field goal percentage, their opponent's effective field goal percentage made Mizzou number 333 out of 364.
Ooh.
They couldn't stop anybody. They couldn't even stop South Carolina. That game was a blowout, but South Carolina did what they wanted. This defense absolutely collapsed. So that's why, Matt, that's why I said Drake is the better team, because Drake plays good defense. Mizzou's defense was good earlier in the year, and then it basically totally collapsed over the last month.
Crazy. Yeah. That's crazy, man. There was a period where Mizzou looked great. And too bad the tournament didn't start at that time, because after that it was in the crapper, as you pointed out. That number is stunning.
It is
359th out of 364 is stunning. That's an SEC team.
Yeah, they're a bad college basketball team, like really bad.
That are better than that.
Yeah.
Wow,
so,
man. All right.
I'm rooting for Drake. I always like to see the Valley do well, and they're no stranger. They're no strangers to scoring big time knockouts either.
No,
that's the other thing yesterday. Well, the Missouri Valley Conference. You kind of remember Loyola versus Illinois in 2021, maybe.
Yeah.
People
Northern
just
Iowa. Ali Farokhmanesh. Yeah.
Right, thank you. Yeah, people just can't remember anything that happened beyond 20 minutes ago. So anyway.
Boys, that's a wrap, man. When we come back onto the Gashouse Gang on Monday, Chris Ranji is going to be driving the ship. Tom Ackerman is going to be here. I think, I don't know if you're in on Monday, Bernie, but you're a big part of the daily routine there. Matt and I will pop in when it doesn't really conflict too much with the 5 o'clock hour, which is the Redbird Rush Hour. So, by the way, add that to your list, because we're going to be doing that on the stream, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and, of course, live on the air. And don't forget, KMOX is moving to 104.1 FM starting Monday at 12:01 a.m. 1120 will still exist. That's not going anywhere. That is never going anywhere. You're always going to have that. But we're adding 104.1 as of Monday. Boys, have a great weekend. Bernie, we'll talk to you later on DGS. Matt, we'll talk to you later on as well. Have a good trip today, by the way. You're going to be calling some Mizzou baseball, so have some fun with that. And we'll be looking forward to talking to you guys down the road. This has been the Gashouse Gang.